was Nebuchadnezzar wanted them to sing and perform the same shir that they performed in the Beis Hamikdash. They cut off their thumbs, so they shouldn't be able to play instruments. And
Shouldn't be able to what?
They didn't want to be able to play instruments in honor of Nebuchadnezzar.
Oh.
So they cut off their thumbs. So those were the only Levim that came back. But maybe their children already had thumbs. So that's what Tosha says. Because otherwise it's Tamshver. It says
anyway, the haluchas from Nachle wasn't going on by Bayis Shaim. Only by Bayis Rishon they had the problem. They only lived in these cities and everything. But when it's written to Bayis Shaim, in the Nachlas of Bayis they could be.
Levim live off Meiser.
When they don't have fields and when they don't have any property, when there's a Kunish, then because
so you want to say that Levim got property? You're saying that? You're suggesting maybe.
They weren't different than all other
I never knew that. It's Chiddush. Yeah.
Because all the haluchas from the other Ba'adige Koisai came out the Schmitte. But the Hura and Levim, the other Zachas.
He didn't apply by Shani. Okay? Okay, let's see the Heilige Mishnah on Daf Pei Vav Amud Beis. Bas Yisrael. So until now, we learned that a woman like a Bas Kohen who ate Truma because of her father's household, and she got married to a Yisrael, loses her privilege to eat Truma. But if she divorces or her husband dies, then she goes back with Shava Beis Avi Kinura, she goes back to eat Truma. So we see that her birthright to eat Truma comes back to her. Now we're going to discuss what about rights to eat Truma that she gained because she was a Bas Yisrael who married a Kohen. How would those come back to her? Bas Yisrael shenisas l'kohen. A Bas Yisrael that was nisas to a kohen. So toichel b'truma. She's allowed to eat truma because she's an eishes kohen. Mace. What if her husband dies? But v'lo himenu ben. But she has a son from the kohen. So it says kol yilid beisai. Yoichlu v'lachmoi. Toichel b'truma. For that reason, she's allowed to eat truma. Nisas l'levi. What if she then married a Levi? So her first husband died, and now she married her second husband, who's a Levi. Toichel b'maiser. She can eat maiser, but she can no longer eat truma. Mace. V'lohi menuben. What if the Levi died, and she has a son with the Levi? Then toichel b'maiser. So she can eat maiser because of this son, but not truma. And what happens if after that nises l'Yisrael? So then, loy soicha loy b'truma v'loy b'maiser. Mace, what if the Yisrael died? The law heimenu ben, and she has a son with this Yisrael. So then, on account of that child, loy soicha, she's not allowed to eat loy b'truma v'loy b'maiser. She's not allowed to eat truma or maiser. Mace b'nomi Yisrael, if her son from the Yisrael died, toichel b'maiser, she goes back to the previous step where she can eat meiser because of the child born to her from the Levi. Meis b'nami Levi. What if that child who was born to her dies as well? Then toichel b'truma. Then she goes back to being able to eat truma because of her son that she had with the kohen. Oh, Gavaldik, thank you so much. I never needed it more. Meis b'nami kohen. And if the son from the kohen died, who was her ticket to eat truma, then loy soicha loy b'truma v'loy b'maiser. Then she cannot eat neither truma nor maiser. Nothing like it. So to Heilige Gemara weiter. Let's see what the Mishnah says weiter. Bas kohen shenishes liYisrael. A Bas kohen that married Yisrael, lo soichel b'truma. Now that she's an Eishes Yisrael, she may no longer eat. Mace, what if her husband Yisrael dies, but below himenu ben, and she has a son with that Yisrael. So because of the son, she maintains her connection to the Yisrael, and she's still disqualified from eating Truma. This is the Levi. What if after the Yisrael died, she married a Levi? What about this is Lakoin? What if she didn't marry the Kohen? Then Toichel B'Trum. Mes v'lo yemen ben Toichel B'Trum. Mes b'no mikoyin. If her son from the Kohen died, so she no longer has her ticket to eat Truma, lo Toichel B'Truma. Meis b'no let me Levi, lo Toichel B'Maiser. Meis b'no mi Yisrael chayzeres leveis avia. She goes back to her Kohenes lifestyle as a single Kohenes. She's allowed to eat Truma again. Azunemar Shove al Beis Avia Kinura. She goes back to her household, to her father's household, like she was, single without children. Milechem Avia Toichel, she'll be able to eat from the lechem of her father, from the Truma of her father. Givalti. The question that they ask here is, her first husband died, her second husband died, is she allowed to get married a third time? She's a katlanis already, right? So the answer, there's different reasons for it. What? It's a machlokes. I think we had a story with Abaye who thought that it was also only the third time, and he tried it out and he died. Right? Didn't we have that in the Gemara? So these are the types of things you can't try out. You can't try on yourself. Hezok the Gemara. Meis b'na milevi. Her son, who she had with the Levi, died. Toichel b'truma. She can go back to eat Truma. Now, who are we speaking about? We're speaking about a woman who was born a Yisraelis, and she married the Kohen, and the Kohen died, but she had a child with the Kohen. So she's allowed to continue to eat Truma because of this child born to her. So she never had a birthright to eat Truma. Her only right to eat Truma came because she had a son that was a Kohen. Now her son dies. I'm sorry. Now she marries a Levi. So even though she has the son who could technically be Machal Truma, once she's married to a Levi, she may no longer eat Truma, she can eat Meiser. What if the Levi dies and the Levi's son dies? So now she's completely severed from the Levi, so she goes back to the last step that she was in her life. The last step that she was in her life was that she had a child, a Kohen. And therefore, she could once again eat Truma. So the death of the son from the Levi restores her right to eat Truma. So this is a chiddush that not only does a Bas Kohen goes back to her pre-marriage state, even a Bas Yisrael, who through marriage got the privilege to eat Truma, she'll also go back to that state. Zok the Gemara, we know how do we do this? Amarav Bas Ubas. It says in the pasuk, Zok Rashi. It says Ubas Kohen Kisiya Almano Grusha. So the Vav tells you that it's not only speaking about a Kohen, it's also speaking about a Bas Yisrael who married a Kohen and through the Kohen acquired the right to eat Truma. Zok the Gemara, come on, Rabbi Kiva. We had this earlier. Who darshans extra vavin? Rabbi Kiva, the Darish Vavi. Zok Gemara, no, maybe afilu temer Rabbanan. Even if you hold like Rabbanan, it's not just a vav of ubas that we're darshaning from. It's kula ubas kra yiseruhu. The whole word ubas is an extra word. It could have just said kisiya almon grusha because we know we're talking about a bas kohen because that's what the previous pasuk was talking about. Okay, gewaltig. Zok the Gemara weiter. Tana Rabban. Kishehi chayzeres. When she goes back, so this is a woman who was able to eat Truma only because she was once married to a Kohen and she has a child from the Kohen. She's a Bas Yisrael. She's a Bas Yisrael, and her only right to eat Truma was because she was married once upon a time to a Kohen who died and left her with a child. Even after she had the child and she was eating Truma, machmas the child, she got married to a Levi, and the Levi now disqualifies her from eating Truma. So the Levi dies and this child dies, so she reverts back to the previous stage she was in, which was she was an almana from the Kohen, and she had a child, a kohen. That's why she's allowed to eat truma. So Zok Gemara, even though she can go back and eat truma, she wouldn't go back to eat chazav b'shoik. When she was married to the kohen, he was able to share his chazav b'shoik with this woman. Now she can't have it anymore. So even though her right to eat truma gets restored, not the right to eat chazav b'shoik. Yes. Yeah. When she married a kohen, she had the right to eat truma and chazav b'shoik. If she had a son with the kohen, even if the kohen died, she could still partake in the chazav b'shoik until she loses it because she married a lady. Where do you see this in the pasuk? It says once she marries out, she can no longer eat for Trumas HaKodeshim. So we darshan Trumas HaKodeshim doesn't just mean Truma, it's Bimura min HaKodeshim. Trumas HaKodeshim means something that was separated from Kodeshim. Chazav B'shoik is something that was separated from Kodeshim, and that Loisoichel she's not allowed to eat. Rashi says, Bimura min HaKodeshim, it's Chazav B'shoik. It doesn't say B'Kodeshim. It says V'chazav B'Trumas. It says B'Trumas Kodeshim. L'mora Mudasa. V'hai L'mura Mudasa. It's talking about something that's separated, like the Chazav B'Shoik. V'hai Loisoichel Lo'olamhu. It means she could never ever eat that. V'loiteva b'Yesheves Tachas Baila Yisrael. Don't say that by Yesheves Tachas Baila Yisrael, that's the one who cannot eat Chazav B'Shoik. But when she comes back to her father's house, she can once again eat chazav b'shoik. You don't say that. So Kimna like Ra, in Perek Almana, we've already said that this pasuk is speaking about a nivel al apostle. It's not speaking about somebody who was married to Yisrael. The psul in this pasuk is talking about a permanent psul. The Chayhen is the mitzvah of Lazar, but if a Chayhen is married to Yisrael, that's not a permanent psul. How do you know she can't eat truma when she's married to Yisrael? Because it says in the pasuk when her husband dies, v'shava el beis avia. So vice versa, there was something that she wasn't allowed to do up until this point. So v'shava beis avia afinan mechlal demikar loyach. Umiltu Rav Chisda mibet trumas nafla. He's learning it out of the dik of trumas hakodshim. It's not kodshim; it's chazav b'shoik, which are separated from the kodshim. Them came to kula kral the nivel apostle. Also, if you're going to say the whole pasuk is only talking about a nivel apostle and not a bas kohen who married out, or not a bas Yisrael who was married to a kohen and a Levi. Lichtoi v'kodshim v'soicha. My betrumas shema mina halchi kamer. This is what the pasuk is telling us. Yesh loch acheres. There's another woman shoichelas b'kodshim that can eat kodshim kogoin truma, but ve'ena oichelas b'mura. They cannot eat something that's separated from kodshim. They zu chayzeres. This is a woman who is coming back after her son from the Levi died. So that's how we learn Pshat in this pasuk. The short story is that from these psukim you learn that a woman who goes back to the fold of being able to eat truma does not restore her right to eat chazav b'shoik. I believe we learned earlier that it's a bas kohen as well. I'm sorry? No. I think the Gemara. We had that in the Gemara earlier. Okay, so let's see the Gemara weiter. Rab Nachman Amar, Rabbi Baruch. Rab Nachman says a different reason why she could not eat. Because it says mi lechem v'lo kol lechem. It says that when she goes back, once again she can eat mi lechem aviyah, but it says she can eat from some of the lechem of her father, not from all the lechem prat lechazav b'shoik. So that's the second mikar for this halacha. Mask of Rabbi Bachama, Ema, who said that this pasuk is telling you that what's limited, what she could no longer get from her father is chazav b'shoik. Maybe Milechem is to tell you Prat La Forest Nadarim. Maybe it's telling you that he can no longer be made for his Nadarim. He who said Bechalal that it's talking about Chazav V'Shay. Zok to Gemara Amarava Farpaska Tana Devei Rabbi Shmuel. The Tana of Rabbi Shmuel already told us this. He already clarified this. The Tana of Rabbi Shmuel, it says V'neder Almana Ugrusha Yakum Alaha. The neder of an Almana Ugrusha, no one can be made for it because she doesn't have a husband. So therefore, her neder is Mukui. Ma Talmud Leimer. Why do I need the Torah to tell me that? It's very poshut. She's no longer in her father's domain because she was married already. And she's no longer under her husband's domain because she's almana or a grusha. So why do I need the pasuk to tell me that an almana or grusha, no one can be made for another? It's poshut. Ella, I'll tell you what it's talking about. If the father gave over his daughter to the shluchei baal, he gave over for marriage. Or the father sent people to deliver his daughter to somebody, and they met the shluchim of the husband, and they gave her over to him, and then with this armala and this guy shabbaderech, and while she was going to meet her husband, she became an almana or a grusha. He called off the wedding. When the armala, I'm sorry, he didn't call off the wedding. He did. He was megarsher. He was battle kedushin. Yeah. So yeah. So yeah. Hey, ani karba beis avia shozu, oy beis baal shozu. You can't really consider her in any one of these two domains. Elaloi malach, it tells you, even sheyata shah achas mershusav, since for 1 hour she's already out of the reshusav because his shluchim gave her over to his shluchim. Shuv einu yachal hafer. He can no longer be made for the door. So how could you tell me? How could you ask me? You should teach from there that Prat La Forest Nadorim. This is what we know from the pasuk of a neder almana grusha. So therefore, it's not a kash anymore, because from a neder almana grusha, you learn that once she's out of the father's rishos, she doesn't go back in le'inyan forest nadorim. And milechem aviyah, you learn that she could only eat truma, but not chazav v'shay. Zok to Gemara, third shot. Reb Safar Amar milechem aviyah toichel lechem v'lei basar. Davka lechem, which is made out of truma, out of grain, but basar is not on the list of what she's allowed to eat. Rav Papa Amar, so this is our third shot already. Rav Papa Amar, we have another shot. Milechem aviyah toichel means lechem hakoni le'aviyah. Something that's the mum and coin. Truma is the moment of the coin. You make kedusha with it. Prat lechazav v'shayich the mishulchan gavoya kazach. Chazav v'shayich that a coin gets, it's not his. He doesn't own it. He's just zoicha that he's eating by the Rebbeinu Yisraelim's table, but it's not his. Therefore, she can't eat that. This is not lechem aviyah. The Rav Amar, Rav has another pshat. It says this chazayat nufa v'shoyka truma toichlu. You should eat. Ata uvanecha uvneisecha itcha. Bizman sheitcha. The only time you can eat the chazayat nufa and the shoyka truma is only when they're with you, meaning they were never married. But once they're married and they come back, there wouldn't be a heter to eat those things. To eat the chazayat v'shoyka. I'm sorry?
Why is not called itcha when she's coming back?
I guess kozman shitcha means when she's with you on the first round. Yeah, I guess so. What's that? She can be tama regardless. Aha. I hear. What's that?
She comes back, and she comes to join when she goes out.
Could be. But chaz v'shek, she can't eat. Yeah. So let's use Gemara back here. Omar about the Brab. Tana, we learned, Kishi Chayzeres Levei Savia, when she goes back to her father's household, meaning a Kohenes that got married to Yisrael now is moving back in. Chayzeres Truma, she goes back for Truma. But Bishvil Bena, but if she's going back because she has a son of Kohen, then Chayzeres Af L'Chazav B'Shay. Then she can even continue to go eat Chazav B'Shay. So she's better. This woman who only acquired the right to eat Chazav B'Shay by marrying, she's better off. Also, Rav Mordechai, Omar L'Shmaitz Kamei Rav Ashi. He went and told this over to Rav Ashi. Rav Ashi didn't like this. Amar, he said, where do you know that even not a Bas Kohen, even a Bas Yisrael who married a Kohen also gets to go back to eating Truma once there's no later marriages that are obstructing? You know it from Ubas. Ubas Ish Kohen is the halacha of the Bas Kohen. So how could you say, Mi adif l'amina? If you're only learning this halacha from a Bas Kohen, how could you say that when a Bas Kohen couldn't eat Chazav B'Shay, that a Bas Yisrael could eat? Zok Gemara, that's not a kasha. Hazam ksivi miute. When we're talking about this woman, Kohenes, there's special miutim to say that she cannot eat. Hacha, but when it's talking about the Bas Yisrael who got a right to eat, like ksivi miute, it doesn't have miutim, special miutim, special for this woman in this situation. Zok the Hedega Gemara right. Bas Kohen shenishes Yisrael. A Bas Kohen married a Yisrael. Tanu Rabban. It says in the pasuk V'shava el Beis Avia. She goes back to her father's household, referring to a Kohenes that got divorced or became this Almana. Prat l'shemeres Yavim. A shemeres Yavim would not go back to Beis Avia. If she's a shemeres Yavim to Yisrael, she does not eat truma. Kinurel teaches us prat l'meuberes. If a woman is a meuberes, then she doesn't go back to her father's household. She's not exactly in the same condition that she left. If you think about it, it's a kolachim. What is the halacha if a woman was married to Reuben and she had children, and then he died, and then she married Shimon, and Shimon didn't have children? Would this woman be mechuyev in Yibam? Avada, because the whole purpose of Yibam is to be boina shem achim, and Shimon didn't have children. Mali that this woman has other children. Shimon doesn't have children. So Maladinu, umaba makam shaloi also vlad min arishan kavlad min hasheni lepatr min Yibam. Madach ba'Yibam, where they said that the vlad min arishan doesn't help. Nevertheless, also uber kiyulad, a woman who's pregnant, it's like she's already given birth. In other words, there's no yibam on a woman who's pregnant. Mokim she'asa vlad min harishon, vlad min hasheni lepoitlam min truma. But in the case of truma, where the vlad min harishon is like the vlad min hasheni, because she becomes possible from truma, eino din, isn't it justified? Shenasa uber kiyalud, that the uber should be kiyalud, and therefore Abu Berish shouldn't be able to truma. Zokt Rashi, Mokum she'asav lad Baskoin shenishes Yisrael, a Baskoin who married a Yisrael, the Yoldaloi, and she had a child, a Kohen, Umeis, and then the Kohen died. V'nises la'acher, and she went and got married to a third party, Umeis b'loy banim, and now her second husband died b'loy banim. The halacha is adayin hi asur b'truma. She's still asur on truma. Why? Mishum vlad min arishan, because she had a vlad from her first husband who was a Yisrael. The Haksiv, it says in the pasuk v'zer ein la, v'hara yeshla. She has. So zok the Gemara, hamalom kinurah prat limuberes, and muberes does not have a right to go back into truma. Ve'yitzrich lemichtiv muberes. Let's just see the aleph of the bach. Ve'yitzrich lemichtiv kinurah lemute muberes. We need the pasuk of kinurah to tell us that a muberes wouldn't go back to her father's household to eat truma. And we also need a pasuk of V'zer Einla, which tells us that unless there's no vlad at all, she would not be able to go back to her father's household, teach Truma. So why do I need both? They both seem to be saying similar things. So if all it said was V'zer Einla, but didn't say Kinura, then I would say, Meikar Echad Gufa, when she left her father's household, she was one person. V'hashta Trei Gufin. And now that she has a child, she has two Gufin. There's two people involved. So that's why we don't let her go back and eat Truma from her father's household. Ava Mu'beres. But if she's only in Mu'beres, she doesn't have a child yet, the Meikar Echad Gufa, V'hashta Echad Gufa, it was always the same guf. Maybe then she should be able to eat Truma, because she is similar to the situation that she was, the condition that she was in when she got married, the Gemar Tricha. That's why you need the pasuk of Kinurel to tell you that Muberes, in fact, would not be able to. Because of Achman Muberes, and if the pasuk only told us of Muberes, meaning Kinurel, the Mikara Gufa Sarika, because when she left her father's household, she was an empty guf, and guf that didn't have a lot inside it. The hashta guf amalia, so her body changed dramatically. That's why she can no longer eat truma. Avol zera einla, the mikar guf asrika, v'ashta guf asrika. She's the same woman. She wasn't pregnant. She didn't have a vlad in her when she originally married out, and now coming back, she doesn't have a vlad in her just because she has another child. Eimaloi, maybe she would be able to continue eating truma. Tricha, that's why you need the pasuk. So you need the pasuk to tell me that she's shy, she doesn't need truma if she's pregnant, and shy, she doesn't need truma if she had a child. Simin, Omer lei, loy nasa myself, the misa, nasa, veloy nasa, bevlad, yove, mutruma, yiba, mutruma, simin. Very complicated. The what?
Changed them because she gained weight. I don't understand that either, because if she has a child, then her goof is how it was before, and she already had a child, so I think that's part of it.
That's what the Gemara is saying. The Gemara is saying you might think that if she had a child and she's not pregnant anymore, maybe she should be able to continue eating truma because she's in the same condition that she was when she left her father's household. Okay. Moti doesn't like the svara that if someone became pregnant, that should be a reason why she shouldn't be able to eat truma. Zok the Gemara weiter. No, who was the
No, the blood line is the one that if the woman that's married to a Kohen and she's pregnant, maybe that's not Kohen.
Of course.
It's only when she's an woman. Even if she has a child, she's still disqualified.
No, of course not.
It's only because the liver can't be ma'achub.
That's right. That's right. But we're talking about, on the flip side, we're talking about a bas kohen who got divorced and is coming back home. Does the fact that she's muberes prevent her from eating truma again?
If she had a yisroel inside.
Yeah, Zok the Marvaiter.
If she's choderes le with her child, she could eat.
That's not what the Gemara says. A woman who was married to a kohenes, who's married to a Yisrael and had a child, a Yisrael, she can't go back to the Talmud. Yeah, bas kohen who married Yisrael. That's not talking about a bas kohen. That's talking about a woman who acquired the right to eat chosev v'shoik by marrying a kohen. Because her husband died.
And then she married to
even though she had a son with the kohen, she married a lady.
When the life died, when the life's child died, then she could come back even the child.
That's right. According to that shita. Right? Okay, well. Amar lei Rabbi Yehuda mida askarta l'rava. So now that we have this kal v'chomer, we're going to use this kal v'chomer to try to accomplish different things. Loi nasa mesim k'chaim l'inyan yibam mikal v'chomer. We shouldn't make mesim k'chaim l'inyan yibam mikal v'chomer. What does it mean, mesim k'chaim? So Rashi says, loi nasa mesim k'chaim esach shel zika im yamis b'nola acheshban. So imagine a woman has a child with her husband and he dies. She's not Zakak Libam. What if the child dies later? Maybe she should be Zakak Libam. The Gemara asks, Lainasa Mesim Techayim, Le'inyan Yibam, Mikal V'chaymer. We should say that Mesim should not be like Chaim, Le'inyan Yibam, Mikal V'chaymer. In other words, if the child dies, she should be once again Muchuyev in Yibam. What's the Kal V'chaymer? Uma b'mokim she'asa Vlad ben Arishon ki Vlad ben Hasheni lepoisla ben Truma. Ma in a case where the Shayla v'achilus Truma, where they made the Vlad ben Arishon, just like the Vlad ben Hasheni, to pass her from Truma. Nevertheless, by Truma, lo yasa meisim techayim. If the child dies, it doesn't pass her from Truma anymore. Mogam shaloyos of Vlad ben Arishon to Vlad ben Hasheni lepoit ben Yibam. But Yibam, we're having a Vlad from a previous husband, doesn't partner her from Yibam with a later husband. Eino din surely shlenasa mesim k'chayim, that mesim shouldn't be like chayim. Right. So if the child dies, no. What do you mean? She had a child with her husband, and then his husband died, and there the child died. So now there's no more zeicha for her husband.
Another.
No, that's Vlad ben Arishon. Chaim, I'm talking about Mesim Chaim. The Gemara wants to say, just like a child from another husband has no impact, right?
Bringing a raya from something that has no reason to.
We're bringing a raya from Truma.
Truma, I understand where a second husband's.
Truma, you didn't make Mesim Chaim. By Truma, a previous husband's child makes a difference. Yet you don't say Mesim Chaim. So you're saying since it's a different reason, you shouldn't make Kal V'chomer. Well, the Gemara is talking about Kal V'chomer anyway. The Gemara answers, Talmud Loimer, what type of life would it be if this woman, her husband dies, she's left with a child, and she marries somebody else, and then they tell her, your child dies, now you need to go make chalitza, right? Because you're zakugin. That's not da'achinoim. And Rashi says why. Look at Rashi. Rashi, they're ched da'achinoim. V'zu shahayil abein. This woman who had a bain, and because of that, when her husband died, v'loinis kol yibam, v'nisis l'shup, and she ended up marrying a strange man, and then umeis b'na, im toimer tachloich, if you're going to require chalitza in such a situation, and you'll say the Zika came back, already misgan al baila. A husband who knows that his wife needed chalitza from somebody else gets a little freaked out because it means like she was a shtickle married to somebody else, and that won't be good. It all depends on the shas misa. Okay, so let's try something else. Mesim should be just like chaim. Why? Because we learn it from the anchor, which is going to be Yibam. Nevertheless, also Mesim Kachayim Mokim. So also Vlad ben Arisha Kavad ben Hasheni, like by Truma, the point of the Truma, Eino Din Shanasa Mesim Kachayim. Surely Mesim could be like Chaim as well. Talmud Loimer, you have a special pasuk by Truma that tells you the Zera Einla. When could she continue to eat Truma? When could she go back to her father's house with eat Truma? Davka v'Zera Einla. She doesn't have. She doesn't have. So therefore she can go back. Frankly, more okay. So let's try something else. But Nasa Vlad ben Arishon to Vlad ben Hasheni l'nivim mikal v'chomer. Even if she has a husband from a child from a previous marriage, that should part her from Yibam. So Mati has the same kash over here. If the purpose of Yibam doesn't understand what that's for, right? I hear. So frankly, more you should have such a kal v'chomer. Ma'adich in a place where they didn't make Mason B'chaim L'yin Truma. Nevertheless, also Vlad ben Rishon Kavlad ben Sheni. They made the Vlad of the Rishon just like the Vlad of the Sheni. Mokum Shosha Mason B'chaim L'yin Yibum. By Yibum where Mason is Kachayim. Ein Oidin Shenasa Vlad ben Rishon Kavlad ben Sheni. And that's a Gemara. Tavalayim Ubein Ein Loi. Va'Ein Loi. At the time of the Misa, if she didn't have a child, then she's B'chuv Yibum. Otherwise, she's not. Break the Gemara. V'loi Nasa Vlad ben Rishon Kavlad ben Sheni b'Truma b'Kavachim. Why do we make Vlad ben Rishon Kavlad ben Sheni by Truma? We shouldn't do it, and we should have a Kavachim not to do it. Uma b'makom shasa Mason b'Chaim l'partim in Yibum. Ma'adich in a place like Yibum, where we even make Mason b'Chaim and they pater a woman from Yibum. Still, loy also Vlad ben Rishon Kavlad ben Sheni. Still, they didn't say that a Vlad from the Rishon would still be a Vlad, would be like a Vlad ben Sheni. Mokum shaloi also Mason b'Chaim l'yin Truma, where we don't say Mason b'Chaim. Eino din, isn't it mistaber? Shaloi nasa Vlad ben Rishon Kavlad ben Sheni. That's a Gemara. Talmud Leimer ain't law, but yesh law. The Torah says only if she doesn't have children, she goes back to her father's house. Here, Lamaisa, she has. The Torah is hadin lach yesh mataris, hadin lach yesh mataris. Wow. Now we're up to another tragic story. Ha'isha shaholach baila l'Medina sayam. A woman's husband went away on a long trip, and she had no idea where she was. There was no communications in those days. They came and told her, and we're assuming to see they is just an Eid Echad. They came and told her, Meis by Lecha, your husband died. So she followed the advice of the Eid Echad, the Eid said Eid Echad, V'nisis, and she got married. The Achach Bo Baila, and Rachman son, her husband showed up, and she's living with another man. So the halach is Teitzei Mizeh u'Mizeh. Both of these men have to give her a get. Utricha get Mizeh u'Mizeh. So she's not allowed to live. She's also to both the Baal and the Bar, and she needs a get from both of them. But think about it. She's only married to the first. So the get from the second is a Durban. She cannot remarry him. No. She'll have to marry a third party. The Ein law like Ksuba, she doesn't get Ksuba from her husband because she's considered someone who is Mizana Takas Baila. V'loi Paris, she doesn't get Paris. V'loi Mizonis, she doesn't get Mizonis. V'loi Belois. The Gemara is going to discuss it. Very good. V'loi alzeh, v'loi alzeh. Im not law. Mizeh, mizeh. And even if she got some of these benefits, tax her. She has to give it back. But Vlad mamzer, mizeh, mizeh. And from either one, the Vlad will be a mamzer. So from the second husband, we know what a Vlad's a mamzer because she's an Eshish. From the first husband, the Vlad's only a mamzer midarban. But lo yizev is ever tamala. Because she's married to this man, she has a child with him. Why would she be mamzer?
That she had previously?
No, if she continued, she wasn't allowed to continue living with him now.
She went back to living with her first husband?
That's right, and she had a child. No, it's also for her to live with the husband, but the child's not a mamzer. The fact that the Torah says that the child's a mamzer, the fact that the Mishnah says that the child's a mamzer, that's only midrabanan. But I thought that she's not allowed to live with him. Okay. Neither one can be matama to her. I guess if they're kayanim. And neither one has any rights over her mitzvah, something that she finds, or ma'ashidaim. They don't have a right to be made for the dark. If she was a Bas Yisrael, she becomes a Zoina. Ubas Levi, she would be possible from eating Meiser. Ubas Koyim Natruma. And the Ein Yorshin Shalzeh, the Yorshin Shalzeh, Yorshin is Ksubasa. Neither family gets a Ksuba. The Gemara is going to elaborate on this. The Mesu, that's the Gemara's Kasher. That's going to be Gemara's Kasher. The Mesu, Echav Shalzeh, the Echav Shalzeh Chotzen. If any one of these two men died, both sets of brothers have to make chalitza, even though she's not married to the second husband, but the Alter Gzeir, they need to make chalitza. The loy miyabin, they can't make it. Yosy Yomer, Subasa al Nichsei Baila Harishon. She still can collect tuba from her first husband. Belazar Yomer, Harishon Zakoy b'mitziasa, v'maisi there, u'ba'faris nederah. The first husband is her illegal husband, and he's zoicha in all those chusim that a husband has in a woman. If she has bia or chalitza from one of the brothers of the first husband, which are really married to Midaraisa, Poiteris Terasa, with Pater's Terasa, Bein Avlad Bimena Mamzer, and the Vlad will be Imam. Vimnisa Shaloi Rishos. What if she got married without Rishos? And Rashi says without Rishos means without Rishos Bezdin. You know why? Because she had two Eidim, which is exactly what Mati suggested. If she didn't need the special Rishos from Bezdin, because she was relying on bona fide kosher edus, then she's an oinus gomer, and therefore muteris lach surloi, she's allowed to go back to her first husband, because when she's not a zoina, she's considered a complete oinus. Nisis al pi bezdin. What if she was nisis al pi bezdin, which means weiter, they needed a special heter from bezdin, and there wasn't edim. Teitze, she gets divorced, or betur min a carbon, and she's part from a carbon. And again, the Gemara is going to explain. Zog to betur min a carbon, Rashi the yochid also by Ross bezdin potter. Even though it wasn't based on two edim, but if bezdin paskins for you, you're not mechiv. Well, because there's Eirechad, maybe.
What?
Because of an Eirechad.
Why would they?
We're going to soon see that a woman, we allow a woman to get married even with an Eirechad, we'll see why, and even if it's not a kosher rate. What happens if a loy nisis al pi bezin? Then Teitze, then she's going to have to get divorced, the chayeves bekarbon, and she'll be chayev in the So Rashi says, what does it mean shalei al pi bezin? Ela be'edim with edim, then chayeves bekarbon. Why? That's called a shogi. The ein zaynis lipatim in a carbon. The boy leilam tunik. Maybe she should have waited. Okay, let's see weiter. Loinis al pi bezin teitze v'chayeves bekarbon. Yafa koyach bezin. Bezin is they have a strong koyach. Shapaitro min a carbon, because if they paskin for her, then she's put in the carbon. By rua bezin linasi. What if Bezin says you can get married? And she didn't get married. She went and she was mazana. They're chayavis bekarbon. You know why? Shaloi tiru el linasi. They didn't tell her she's mutter nothing. They gave her a heter to get married. That's the only heter they gave her. So we don't say that she had a heter to sleep around. Therefore, she was in the chuliv in that carbon. Because they're saying she's not a neshish. So if she's not a neshish, then her sister's not a problem. Right. But here, since Bezin only let her get married, so we say that she's chayiv in the car. The Gemara. I mean, this mission needs a lot of explanation. So the Gemara is going to explain. The Ketani Sefer. The Baal Sefer says nisis shaloi b'rishos muter slach saloi. It must mean shaloi b'rishos Bezin ela be'edim. Michlal. That must tell us the Reisha b'rishos Bezin u'be'erechad. In the Reisha, she got married because Bezdin made a call, and they paskin that she can get married with an Eirechad. Alma, you see from here, Eirechad Nema. You see that an Eirechad would be believed.
She said that even if it was Eirechad and Bezdin said it, then the kid is not a man.
Right, so we'll see the Gemara on there to explain. But we're still focused on the beginning. With Nanami, we also learned in the Mishnah, Hochzaku Liyos Messian Eid Mipi. They named on that they allowed women to get married. They shouldn't become agunas. They were able to get married even if it's Eid Mipi. Even if an Eid comes to Bezdin and says, I didn't see your husband die, but someone told me that he saw. They accepted that. The Isha Mipi Isha, even though a woman is believed, the Isha Mipi Evet, Mipi Shivcha. Alma, you see from here, Ein Echad Mehemet. Once again, you see in Ein Echad Mehemet. Utnan, and it says, Utnanami, Ein Echad Omer Achal Techela. If an Eirechad comes along and says, you know what, I saw you ate chayla. The person says, lo yachalti, I didn't eat chayla. The loch is potter, he's potter from bringing a carbon. Taima, the amar lo yachalti. Why does the Mishnah say that I don't have to bring a chatos, even though two Eidim come along, even though an Eirechad comes along and said I ate chayla, is because I was soiser. I'm denying that I ate chayla. Ha'ishtik. What if an Eid came along and says chal chayla and I don't respond? You know, because I can't vehemently deny it. So then the Eirechad would be neman. Alma Eirechad memen midiraisa. You see in the Eirechad memen midiraisa because I can bring a carbon based on the edus of an Eirechad as long as I'm not denying it. We know long How do I know this? Oh, midaraisa we know. How do I know even midaraisa? The Tanya we looked in the Brisa. Oy haida elav chatasa. If he himself discovered his avera, that's when he brings the carbon chatas. If other people inform him about his avera, that's not mechayiv him to bring the chatas. You might think you might think that even if he's not makrish to eid, he's still potter from a carbon because the eid not neman to be mechayiv him a carbon. Talmud lemer haida elav mikol makom. Any way he would find out, even if Neirecha told him, provided that he's not contradicting the aid, is Neman. Hechadam. Ilema also tray, if there's two aidim that he's not contradicting, Kralamali. Why would I need a pasuk? Why would I need a pasuk to tell you that he's mechuyev in a carbon? Ella lav chad. It must be Neirecha. And when he's not contradicting the Eidim, the Echad would be believed to be Mechayiv Makarbin. Shema Amina, Eid Echad Nema. So from there you see that an Eid Echad is Nema. Right, okay. Right. Because otherwise you couldn't be Mechayiv Makarbin. It would be Chul Nazar. That's right. So how do you know that the reason why he could be Mechayiv Makarbin is because the Eid Echad is believed? Why don't you say the reason why if an Eid Echad comes and says that I ate chaylev, I have to bring a carbon if I don't contradict him, is not because he has no bonus, because by me not arguing with him, it's saying that I actually agree with him. So it's not a special koyach of an Eid to be mechayiv a carbon midaraisa. Teda, now bring a riot. The Katani Seifa, we saw in the Seifa. If two people told him, you ate chaylev, and he denies it, Meir is mechayiv a carbon. Amar Meir, and Meir said, kal v'chomer, I have a kal v'chomer. If two people, two Edom, are able to be mechayiv a misa, surely they should be able to be mechayiv a carbon. Amar Loi, the Chacham told Meir, the reason why two Edom are not Neman to make me bring a carbon if they say that I ate chaylev is because I could say, yeah, I ate chaylev, but I ate it amazing, so I'm not mechuyev a carbon. Because at least I don't. It's obviously a guy who's not such a oishkahal from the guy. So he's saying I'm not bringing a carbon because it's amazing. I'm gonna burn. I'm not worried about that. We're talking about a guy who's eating chaylev amazing, right? Reisha, my time of mechayiv carbon. Why is he mechayiv carbon in the Reisha when he didn't contradict them? My time of mechayiv rabban. Ilam mishum dehemin. If you're going to say because they're believed, but trei ba'alma two edim the avagav the kamachal l'shu, even if he's contradicting them, inu mehemni they would be believed because pater rabbanon. The Rabbanan can tell you it's potter. El lav mishum de ishtik ushtikal kaida adami. It might be because of shtikal kaida. So let's stop here, and the mission will be mamshech tomorrow. Not to have to bring carbon. Yeah, but they're not going to give him misa because he didn't have a straw. So from his